Hello, everyone. Welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the Going Solo with Cece show, and I am so pleased to be with you here tonight. Haven't been with you for a while, so I am so excited to be back here on the platform. Of course, you guys know where you can reach us. You can reach us right there on goingsolomedia.com, where all of our wonderful shows are posted for you so that you can re-listen to them. But tonight, we've got a great show. We are live here on Facebook, and we're also live on YouTube. So I want to thank all of you for joining us. We have 8 different platforms that we're distributing the show live to. And so if you're listening to one of those, try to see if you can jump in and give a comment. If you can't, I do apologize, because sometimes it's the lead it's a lead platform that we can do the comment. So you can always jump over to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Facebook page, and I'm sure, or on the YouTube channel, and you could do a comment there. But anyhow, let's get on with the show because we've got a lot going on. Those of you who don't know me, I am Cece Schatz. I'm the doyen of relationship building. What I do is really help take you through probably one of the darkest times in your life and moving you through to one of the brightest, wonderful experiences that you've ever had. Because being single is really okay. It's fun, and we really embrace it. So what I do is I connect you with some awesome individuals that help you move through that transition into living the life of your choice, your best life. So let's move on with it. We've got a great guest tonight. Let's bring her right here forward. I'm very excited to have her with me here tonight. We have a wonderful guest. Her name is Joree Rose. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, a mindfulness educator, and an author and speaker. Our topic tonight is going to be Journey Forward with Mindfulness. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Cece. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here and can't wait to have what I'm sure is going to be a really fantastic conversation.
Yes, you're also a podcaster yourself. So
yes, I am.
Some of your shows, and I enjoy them very much. So
Thank you.
We do want to make sure everyone knows, so they go over to and we'll post your information so that they can go over to your site and listen to your shows, because they're really very good. They're very good shows. But let's talk about our subject tonight, mindfulness. Do you think that we just don't have enough mindfulness? Because often in our lives, we don't really, do we?
I honestly don't think we do. And I think part of it, people think mindfulness is this very conceptual, sounds really beautiful and, this lovely idea, but don't really know what it actually means to implement it moment to moment, or to even recognize, how do I begin? How do I know when I'm not being mindful? I really think mindfulness is the answer to everything. And I say that both like jokingly and very serious, whether you're sitting in traffic or dealing with cancer or anything in between. Right now, a worldwide pandemic, going through a divorce. I could not have gone through my own divorce had I not had a mindfulness practice. And the reason I think it's the answer to all this is because it gives you the ability to pause and breathe and slow down and respond versus react to whatever is coming up in the moment. Because we tend to live on autopilot, right? We tend to just go through the motions of our day, and without awareness, we're missing so much, right? We're not paying attention to what's going on inside of us, whether that's our thoughts or our emotions or our sensations in our body. We tend to believe our thoughts as truth rather than the ability to just see them as thoughts. We tend to feel like our emotions are permanent and personal and pervasive and identify us as who we are, when really they're just emotions and just part of being human. We tend to overjudge sensation in our body. We want to push it away, ignore it. We just want to pop some Advil and not feel anything. And we tend to just skip past so much of our experiences. And so mindfulness gives us the ability to slow down, to get curious of what's arising, to get compassionate rather than judgment for whatever it is that's showing up, and then getting really intentional to say, okay, so here's what's going on, whether these thoughts, whether these habits, whether these patterns, whether this pandemic, whether this climate change, and let me just allow it to exist and observe it. And in that space that I create, I can choose, okay, how do I want to respond to this? Easier said than done.
I know, absolutely. Well, I have found that along the way, it's really our journey that we where we learn, we embrace, and we kind of make that transition. So share with our audience a little bit about yourself so we can understand, what really makes you tick, because,
Yeah.
what possessed you to, number one, be a licensed marriage therapist, family therapist, but also head into the direction of the awareness and the mindfulness. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah.
What opened your eyes to that?
So as you can see, journey forward, that's, my trademark. That's the work that I really want to guide people in, is because it is a journey, right? And sometimes we're so in it, we don't even realize we're on a journey. But as long as it's moving forward, that's to me where we have the growth, where we have the awareness, where we can have the self-reflection to say, okay, what am I supposed to mean here? But it took me a long time for me to realize what my own journey forward was. So in a nutshell, my background is, as I like to kind of tell my complete little story, is we all have that little nutshell story of how we used to define ourselves, right? So I married my high school sweetheart. I started dating him when I was 13 and got married at 24. And I didn't know who I was. I had come from a divorced family. I was very dependent on my mom for everything. I felt like I just transferred this dependency right from my mom onto my boyfriend, who became my husband. And I did that in an effort to really seek safety and security in my life. There had been a lot of trauma and a lot of uncertainty. And so when I was growing up, so I was really seeking to create a future that I could count on to help me keep me feel safe and to help me stay grounded. And while that did solve part of the purpose, what ended up happening was I created this life that, on the one hand, I was really happy. I mean, I had everything I wanted. We got married and I had two daughters. I've got two teenagers now. I always wanted two girls. I was fortunate enough to be a stay-at-home mom. Nothing was really wrong. And yet I woke up one day in my early 30s and I said to myself, I don't remember how I got here. I was always just doing what was next, what was next, what was next, seeking more security and safety and what was known in an effort to ease my own fears and anxieties. And while that worked for a good period of time, it got to the point where I was cut off from who I really was. I didn't even really know that I had ever had that opportunity to have that separation and individuation as a teenager that is such a normal trajectory of development and of growing up. And for a while, like I said, that worked until it just didn't work for me anymore. And I had previously already gone to graduate school and gotten my master's degree in counseling psychology. I did that directly out of undergrad. And I always knew that I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to work with people. I knew I wanted to have a career that I was working for myself, partly because I knew that my kids were always going to be my top priority. So I wanted to be able to have a schedule flexible enough to work around my kids when I had them. But what ended up happening was I got halfway through. I live in California, and you need 3,000 hours of internships in order to get qualified to take the state licensing exam. I got halfway through those hours and I realized at this point I was 24, 25 years old. I had no business being anybody's therapist. I really didn't have any life experience. And it was not the right thing for me at that time. And so even though I'd gotten the degree and gotten halfway through those hours, I decided to stop. And I soon later got pregnant and loved being a stay-at-home mom, just literally cherished every second of that. I would not trade that for anything. But then, like I said, I woke up one day in my early 30s and said, how did I get here? I didn't know who I was. I had felt a disconnect in my marriage that I'm not sure was ever really there. We had a very deep friendship, but it wasn't really the relationship that I was hoping and needing and seeking for it to be. And so this kind of life crisis, I call it my 1/3 life crisis of who am I? How did I get here? I decided to go into therapy. And it was sitting in that therapist's office that first day that I thought, I really kind of like this environment I'm sitting in. I think I want to be on the other side of the couch, so to speak. And I had to go back to go get my hours, my internship hours. Well, in California, you need to complete those 3,000 hours within 6 years. And I was well beyond. I had to start from scratch again. which was fine because this time I was ready. And there was a series of synchronous events that led me just on my path. Part of it was I was really open to the universe. Like, all right, universe, here I am. I'm open. Give me signs. Help me, put me on my path. And the universe delivered in multiple ways. But one of the things was when I went back from my internship, I had contacted an old supervisor I worked with 8 years earlier. I hadn't spoken to her in 8 years. And she worked in school settings, and this was in January. So I figured when I reached out to her, I'd have to wait till September to go back to working in a school setting. Well, as serendipity would have it, she had a school come on mid-year, and she had an intern all lined up that the week before I called, the intern dropped out. And so within a week, I was back in a school setting. And it was perfect because it worked with my kids' schedule and I could go back towards this path. Well, what continued to unfold was something I had no idea was going to happen. Oftentimes, that's when the best things occur, when we least expect. And I saw a book in her office one day titled Mindfulness. And I had never heard of the word mindfulness, had no idea what it was. I asked her about it, another series of serendipitous events. The week later, I started a mindfulness course. And it changed everything for me. It was the first time I had ever been introduced to the idea of slowing down and tuning in to what was coming up inside of me and getting really clear on what's my intention of how I want to show up in my life. And from there, really delved deep into mindfulness on both a personal and professional level. So professionally, I did a lot of trainings. I got certified teaching mindfulness to kids. I went on retreats, went with and sat with and studied under some of the top mindfulness teachers in the world. Went on a 5-day silent Buddhist meditation retreat where for 5 days I didn't talk. We meditated for 16 hours a day. It was not even just no talking. There was no eye contact. There was no reading, no writing. It was intense. So I really delved in. And through the process where I had thought I was doing this on a professional path, and I, in my internship, had really cultivated mindfulness as it being my thing. And ironically, although I always knew I wanted to be a therapist, I knew I couldn't be a traditional therapist. And I mean that traditionally in that whole idea that a therapy is this blank slate, or the therapist is a blank slate, and there's no exchange of relationship or conversation. I knew that just wasn't going to be me. And I really had to discover, well, what does it mean for me to show up authentically in a therapeutic setting? And mindfulness gave me the perfect framework in which to do that, where I was actually showing up as a whole person rather than this blank slate. And to me, it made a lot more sense that how could I guide a person through their own personal journey if I didn't show up as a whole person? Because a lot of therapists will not share an ounce of personal information. It's this one-sided relationship, which is supposed to role model what everyday relationships should look like. And yet, if that's not a two-way street, how could that role model with the relationships that we're working towards creating? So mindfulness gave me that framework. So I became a mindfulness-based therapist where I use tools of mindfulness as the foundation for how I work with my clients in both a teaching standpoint, but also in the quality of presence in which I show up in the therapeutic setting. But personally, it gave me something I never would have imagined, which was the ability to really uncover who I was outside of my roles as wife or as mom or as daughter, and really get clear on who am I, what are my values, what are the qualities that I want to live my life, and am I in alignment? Because I had felt like for as long as I could remember, I was kind of cut off from the neck down. I lived in my head. I believed my thoughts. I thought if I could logically create an argument for something, that must mean it's true, where in fact, for a long time, I had been dismissing the messages in my body. I had been dismissing any intuition and discounting it as real or true or valid. Started a meditation practice. I had never meditated a day in my life. I thought the first meditation I was guided in, I was going to die, because how could anyone ask me to sit for 10 minutes and sit still and do nothing but just breathe? I thought that was just crazy talk. And I learned to find the way not only in which I could engage in meditation, but for actually reap huge amounts of benefits from slowing down, becoming aware, increasing compassion, getting really, really present. Because being present was
It's
really
so
hard for
amazing.
me.
It is so amazing when you tell your journey, and I've listened to the same, the same feelings that other people have had and other professionals have had as they've walked through their journey of their life and
Mm-hmm.
gotten to the point where they are helping individuals such as yourself. And it amazes me how the awareness that overtakes them, and then that journey begins as they start
Yes.
trying to find themselves. And this show is geared towards those who are in that transition, those who are saying to themselves, I'm not necessarily unhappy, but I know I could be happier. I know that there's something else out there for me that I need to be able to grasp.
Yeah. And there's a huge difference between being happy and being fulfilled.
Yes.
Two very different things. And for me, it was an existential crisis because I really had the perfect life. So it felt very selfish of me to say, I'm not sure if it's the right thing for me. And yet, if I was out of alignment, it wasn't the right thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it took an immense amount of time, but courage and vulnerability to be able to sit with that truth that I think I had been pushing down for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's way easier said than done. But, there's a couple of quotes that really changed my life in part of this process. One of which, actually, they're both by the same person, which is ironic. They're both by the poet Anais Nin. And the first quote is, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was greater than the risk it took to blossom." And that just spoke to me because it was too painful to stay closed. And it was going to be a lot more work to open myself up and a lot more change and a lot more fear and unknowns. But part of what I had to do was I had to shift my relationship to the unknown, where I had spent over 30 years creating an environment in which I had no unknowns in an effort to feel safe and secure. So the unknown was like the biggest deep, dark hole of an abyss. The future was like so scary to me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I recognized I had to shift my relationship to the future, I had to shift my relationship to the unknown. And here's what I came to. I had the known and the unknown. And in the known, I wasn't fulfilled. And I kept trying all sorts of things, couples therapy, individual therapy, acceptance, resignation, whatever it is. And then I had the unknown. And then I realized it was in the unknown where possibility resided. Because everything that I was seeking, I was trying to create in the known, and I couldn't create it. And I mean, I had never been alone a day in my life. I had been with my ex-husband since I was 13 years old. We never once broke up. We'd been together 23 years. And never having dated, never living on my own. Like, these were massive fears to overcome.
So relate to all of that. The same thing. Never
And
dated,
it would have been a lot easier to stay safe and secure and tell myself, but it's fine. Be happy. Just let it go. And you can only do that for so long until the inside of you starts to feel like it's crumbling a little bit. And so the second quote,
there's something inside of you that says there's more. There's more that you're supposed to do. There's more that you're supposed to embrace. There's more that you're supposed to just, I don't know. I just don't. It's hard to put it into words because it's definitely there. And
it's a felt sense, right? It's not a cognitive thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a visceral thing. And what was happening in my mindfulness and meditation practice was I was going deep and I was learning who I was. And so the second quote that changed my life, in addition to the first Anais Nin one, is, "I must be a mermaid. I have no fear of great depths, but I have great fear of shallow living." And that was very powerful because I felt like with my mindfulness practice, I learned who I was at a deeper level. And then I would have to rise back up to the surface to live my everyday life. And it felt inauthentic. Mm-hmm. And it became really hard to continue to be in that inauthentic, misaligned space. It wasn't an easy process, and it was by no means a quick process. It was a good 5-6 years of getting to know myself and getting comfortable with how to go about creating change and letting that be okay, that everything that I thought was supposed to be or was that it was going to be, wasn't going to always be?
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. We're going to go on just a quick break. And when we come right back, let's talk a little bit about that change, because I think we do have to make that transition. And I know many out there are listening that are wanting to know, okay, if I feel like this, how do I start putting the wheels in motion, so to speak? How do I start making that transition,
Yes.
that change that's good for me? So we're going to be right back here. We're going to take just a quick break. You all, we are on the Going Solo with Cece show. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We're just going to take a moment of silence for our advertisers could be dropped in on the affiliates that we are on. And so if you'll just bear with us for just 5 seconds, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we're back. This is Going Solo with Cece. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We're a radio, TV, and podcast station. We're the #1 internet singles talk network, and we're really proud of that. You guys, our website is goingsolomedia.com, and if you want to send us any kind of email, let us know what you'd like to hear. Our email is goingsolonetwork@gmail.com. We keep it very simple. So we hope that you guys are enjoying this show. The first half of the show, we are talking with our wonderful guest here tonight, Joree Rose. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, mindful educator, and an author and speaker. And we're talking about the journey forward with mindfulness. And so the first part of the show, she shared with us her journey, how she really got to where she is, really what inspired her, and how she is embracing others to really take them on this journey with her to open their eyes, to be able to open their lives to living their best lives. And so that's what we like to do here on Going Solo. We like to really embrace that living your best life. But before we get started, I want to share with you, she did mention the first part of the show that she has, and she does have a book out, and I want to make sure I share that with you.
I've got 2 books. Yes.
I have 2 books. Okay, so we'll do that. So you have a children's book called Squirmy, and which learns to be mindful. So what's your other book? I'm sorry, I missed that.
That's okay. It's called Mindfulness. It's Elementary. And this is a book that is a guide for a teacher, educator, counselor, or even a parent to guide a child through cultivating a mindfulness practice.
Oh, that's
and
wonderful.
I'm also excited to share, Cece, for those of you who are interested in any of the work that I've mentioned so far, I've got a book coming out around the first of the year on gratitude. So stay tuned for the new book coming out.
Oh, that'll be really great. I know that will be good. And then, of course, we talked about your podcast that you have. And so just go to your website and be able to, there's her email, which is joree@comcast.net. And then her website is Joree, Joree Rose, ROSE.com. And then her podcasts are all on there. And I listen to them. So that's why I want you guys to listen to them too. And keep listening to our stuff. But, it always is good to listen to others too. And it's just really great to just embrace your life and be able to move forward. And we want to always encourage everyone to really step out, do something that's good for them. So whatever you're hearing here, hopefully you'll hear it again somewhere else, and then
yes,
that's a wonderful thing. So
the name of the podcast is pretty similar to what's up on the screen. It's a journey forward with Joree Rose. So kind of some consistency everywhere. So I hope to help you guys on this process, because it is a journey. It's not a one and done. Mm-hmm. Right. And
so often we have a lot of individuals that are going through some sort of relationship loss, and then they're transitioning into possibly dating or walking or stepping into their new single life. And they're not really quite sure on how to go about doing it, how to really embrace this new life that now they're embarking upon, and what it is for them. And I love the story, your journey that you shared with us, because I think so often people are experiencing the very same things, and similarities as you have expressed, they could also do, with a meditation, various things like that. So let's talk about that change that we need to do in our lives. We need to take place in our lives, because like you said about and I love those quotes, like the bud going into the flower, that's really what our life is. It should very well be that. And we should not be afraid to blossom and to grow. And so let's talk a little bit about that growth now.
Yeah, well, growth is really scary. Change is really scary. And it's scary because it puts us into a space of the unknown. It's unpredictable. And I think many of us have an association that the unknown is bad. And if we can simply, like I was saying earlier, it's about shifting your relationship to it. And when you can shift your relationship to anything, it automatically changes the trajectory of whatever it is you're managing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I really had to understand where my fear-based insecurities were coming from. Some of it was how I was raised and what I was kind of role modeled in some not so healthy ways, and not terrible, just ways that I didn't want to emulate in my own life. So awarenesses I had gained along the way and messages I had received. But I recognize, if I'm not walking in authenticity, in alignment, in my own path, it doesn't matter where I am if I'm not being able to be myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of that growth process was me not discovering per se who I was, but uncovering who I am. But it was not like I was lost somewhere. I was creating myself as an adult for the very first time. And there's a lot of freedom in that. There's a lot of beauty in that. And people can often look at these transitions, especially after the dissolution of a relationship, as I've lost this whole piece of myself. And yeah, I did. And that was real. And I got to gain a whole piece of myself I never knew existed. And I decided to enjoy the process, that it wasn't happening to me. And I know not all relationships ending is your choice, right? Sometimes you're on the receiving end of someone else's journey, right? My ex-husband didn't really want this. This was something I was needing in my life. And now he and I are both in places that I think we're both pretty happy and in where we're supposed to be. But it was really about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, knowing that that discomfort didn't define me, nor was it permanent. And to enjoy the process and to get the freedom of saying, I get to really decide how I want to show up in the remaining part of my life. What do I want it to look like? What are the qualities I need in myself to cultivate? And especially as I began to date, what are the qualities that I need to cultivate in the people I want to bring around me in relationships, and not just a partner, but in the friendships, and being really clear on what that energy was that I was wanting to bring in. Because I'm, as a therapist, I do so much work with people in their relationships. I think relationships are so powerful and so misunderstood, in that we don't always have the skills and the tools to know how to get through them. Because the real sad truth of it is love isn't enough. And so the keys to making a great relationships are skills that we can learn and build. But if you don't have it within yourself to know who I am, what I need, what are my values, what's my worth, it's going to be really easy to continue to end up being unhappy no matter where you go.
Yeah, you're absolutely right with that. Absolutely.
And, the dating process for me was interesting at first because I had never dated. So, of course, it was really fun, but it was also anxiety provoking. I didn't know how to detach taking things personally if someone didn't text me back, or to not over attach too quickly because why should I let this stranger allow me to feel worthy about myself if, they don't want to go out on a second date? Like all of these things that we take really personal that are not personal. And that's one of the things that I hope especially women see, is how to take more accountability in their own process, rather than letting someone else's actions determine their mood or their worth or their energy level or what they're needing or validating their needs. Mm-hmm. But I now will mention a third quote that changed my life. But I was realizing for a while how much I was having a scarcity mindset, and how much I was in this seeking and grasping mode when it came to dating and wanting to find partnership, and balancing learning how to be confident and comfortable on my own. And I came across this quote one day that's from the ancient poet named Rumi. And it just opened up my mind in such a beautiful way. And the quote says, "What you are seeking is seeking you." And Cece, that just changed everything for me, because I realized I didn't have to fit into some mold of what somebody else was wanting in a partner, that I got to show up completely myself, and someone out there was seeking someone exactly like me.
Mhm. That is so true. That is a great quote. That is.
And I still, to this day, I'm going to show you, it's still on the back of my phone as, what I have as my screensaver on my phone of what you seek is seeking you, because now this is an abundant mindset. Now I'm not grasping and clinging to, someone that may not help keep me in alignment, but I get to show up fully in authenticity, because I am that perfect person for somebody else. And I got really clear on who I was and what I wanted. And so there was one day, I'd been divorced about a year and a half, and it was the Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend, and it was difficult because my kids were with their dad, and so I was alone, and I was trying to embrace that aloneness as a bit more empowering than fearful or anxiety. And I took out a piece of paper and I wrote at the top of it, "What you are seeking is seeking you." And then I continued to write down all the areas of my life that I was full and complete, where I was content, where I was feeling, full and complete. And then I wrote down where I still had room. And I got really clear and really specific on what it was I was wanting to bring in a partner. And I just then sat and I meditated on this. And I literally just, allowed this intention to be set. And I folded up the piece of paper and I put it in my drawer, and I just put this message out to the universe with not attachment. I had no agenda of what that looked like. All I know was I was gaining this clarity around who I am, where I want my life to go, where have the gratitude for where my life already is, knowing that relationship or not, I was all good. That I had created this space, that I was living my best life. I had gotten licensed as a therapist, and at that point, I had finished my hours. I was studying for my exams. I have my 2 daughters. I was good. And I was still a work in progress. Like, it's never this done. That's why it's a journey forward. As long as there's, even just a 1% shift puts us on a forward trajectory.
But isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth for all of us? Is we're constantly
Yes.
a work in process, and our lives, as they keep shifting and keep changing, things do change around us, and so we are forever changing. And so,
Yes.
we have to be a work in process, which is actually a really good thing, because it just means that you continue to grow.
Absolutely.
And you continue to explore avenues that you might not have ever explored before. And what a life you can have, right?
Well, I mean, there was one day that I took my daughters to Kauai. I had always wanted to go to Kauai. I had never been. And so this was our vacation. And at the time, I think they were 10 and 12. And I had decided I was going to be an active part in living my own life, because I had let fear and anxiety take over for too long. And I didn't want to let fear and anxiety rule my options. And it took a lot of work to get there, a lot of mindfulness of recognizing, oh, look, there's my old friend fear again. Okay, I see you. I don't have to let you take over. I can just acknowledge your presence and decide how to relate differently to you, rather than my old pattern of seeing the fear, feeling the fear, and then having it stop me in my tracks. So this trip to Kauai, there was one afternoon where my youngest daughter and I went surfing for the first time. And it was amazing. Here we were paddling out. She was doing incredible. And these beautiful moments of us lying on our tummies on our surfboard in the middle of the ocean, just talking until it was our turn to take the wave. Then the next morning, the 3 of us went on a 6-hour zipline tour. We had never really done that. We did one little small zipline thing somewhere else, but 6-hour ziplining tour. It was incredible. It was right in the center of Kauai where they filmed Jurassic Park. It was beautiful. We then got double-decker ice cream cones for lunch. And then we went on a helicopter tour. And we went to actually the Jurassic Park waterfall that they show in the movie. And we took a helicopter tour across the whole island. it was an incredible day. Like, these are all things I never in my old life would have ever done, because fear and anxiety would have stopped me. And I would have never had given myself the opportunity to experience some of these things. So the next morning, or I think it was that night of the next morning, I'm walking with my daughters down to the pool. And I said to my youngest daughter, that was like the best 36 hours of my life, because it was a reminder to stay alive, to engage in my own life in an active way. And I said to her, that was one of my best days of my whole life. And I'm so glad I got to share it with you. And without missing a beat, she turned to me and she says, Mom, so far.
Yeah.
And it was this beautiful reminder. Like, I thought this was it. And then she had the reminder of so far. And she was absolutely right. It was only the best day so far. And there are so many so far moments ahead of me. But when I lived in fear and anxiety of the unknown, I would never even had that experience. So, the amazing thing is, I told you I sat down on that November Sunday and I wrote that letter, what you were seeking is seeking you. And I meditated on it and I put it away. And at that point, I had been off all dating sites. And I thought, I'm good. I'm just going to be without striving and attaching to what's next. About 10 days later, I decided to re-download some dating apps, not to necessarily look, but I really wanted to see if anybody I was talking to already, I wanted to keep talking to offline, because I just kind of shut down the apps all at once. So I pull up Tinder and I told myself, I'm not there to look. I'm not looking. And the person's profile that was the first one that had popped up was someone that caught my attention. Part of it was he had a PhD in educational psychology. He consulted on the Pixar movie Inside Out, which I thought was like such a turn on, like having this man who is emotionally aware and doing similar work as me. I ended up swiping right. It was a match. We were texting within a few hours. And he asked me out that night, but I couldn't go. I had my kids. And so we decided to meet for lunch the next day. That night, I was lying in bed reading a psychology magazine, and it was an article on couples therapy, one of which I had been trained in, the other which I actually had never heard of. The next day, I walk into the restaurant to go meet him for lunch, and he's reading the book from the article the night before that I had never heard of. And it was incredible. And it turned out he had lived one exit away from me. And we were in the same field. And that first meeting was just like this volleyball back and forth, or like a tennis match of just professional information, like exchanging back and forth. It was so exciting. We never even got to like a personal conversation because we had so much professionally in common. Mm-hmm. So we ended up meeting for coffee the next morning. And we've been together ever since. It's been almost 5 years. We got engaged last December. And what I'm sharing in this is that it's still, we're creating our own way of moving through the world, right? It didn't have to look a certain way. We both got teenagers, we're in love, and we're engaged, and we still don't live together, and we're not planning on living together or getting married, probably not till the kids are out of high school. And so it's another reminder, it does not have to look any particular one way you thought life was supposed to look. Like this idea of,
I love that you say that, because it is so true. And we have a lot of listeners that are in the last quarter of their life, and they're trying to figure out how can they have a relationship? How can they start creating this life for themselves that's now created this huge shift? And mm-hmm. It's true. You don't have to look at your life the way you did before. You can just look at it with fresh eyes, right?
There's a phrase in mindfulness called beginner's mind. Mm-hmm. And it's a meaning of, let me look at something as if for the first time, right? So when you have beginner's mind, you strip away expectation, attachment, judgments, or shoulds. And that's how I chose to continue to show up in this relationship. And part of it was, I needed to be in a relationship in which I could continue my own personal growth and trajectory I had started since my divorce, mm-hmm. while growing together in partnership. And I needed to hold that space simultaneously. And so, yeah, there was such freedom in getting to create what this next chapter looked like. And people still are like, what do you mean you're engaged and don't live together? What do you mean you don't know when you're getting married? It's like, why do I have to? I have partnership. We live together. My kids are my number one priority. This work, I mean, they love him. They're very close with him. They consider his daughter like a sister. And this works. Right now, this works. And we're creating what continues to work. And one day that'll be different. And that's okay
Well,
too.
it's funny because years ago I heard Goldie Hawn say that one time, and she said about getting married. She said, "Why? This works." It was working for them, and so they were very happy, and they're still very happy. And so
Yeah,
there you go. It's we've got the pen. We can write our own journey, our own way of
100%.
as long as we embrace our lives, embrace other people, and keep it ethical, all those kind of things, and be authentic to ourselves. And
Well, and that's ultimately, as a therapist, like, talk about my journey. If I would have known going from the time I was 32 to now over the past 10 years that my journey would have been so beneficial professionally, because to be able to say, I've been there, I know where you're at. And if I can get through it, you can get through it. And here are the tools, because having mindfulness as that framework are very tangible practices that got me through those darkest moments, those deepest fears and anxieties of the unknown, or my own insecurities, or my own what ifs. And so, when I work with people, it's a lot of depth into understanding what's at the core you're afraid of, what's really holding you back, what are your values, how are you being values driven? If you're not enacting in your values, no wonder you're out of alignment. No wonder you don't feel that you're in the right place. But in absence of slowing down and paying attention and having compassion for yourself, it's going to be hard to get there.
yeah, I totally agree. And so often, and I, of course, I believe in God, and I often said, He opens the door for me, but no, I decided to climb through the window instead. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing with our lives. I think so often the doors are open for us to be able to walk through, but we decide to take the harder road, the other road. But I do want to encourage everyone the road of discovery, and
Yeah.
to really, like you said, slow it down, find out more about yourself, connect with others like such as yourself. It is just a wonderful thing. And so I'm
Yeah.
so delighted. I could talk to you forever and listen to you, because I feel like you're very, very inspiring. And I
Thank
just want
you.
to thank you for sharing with us here today. The time went by so quickly.
I
So
know. We could definitely keep talking for
I
so
know we
long.
just get through, but you know what? When you're talking, I kept thinking to myself exactly my road. When I got married, I was married for a long time. I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing, and now my passion, my love, my everything is building the singles network, and I'm just so. And who would have thought? Who would have thought? Yeah. So it's
I
like,
know. Well, what's that old quote? You want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans, right?
no, but it's amazing, and it's just life can just take you down just a mysterious path, but it's being true to yourself, being authentic, and really putting the fear in your pocket, and just
Yeah.
walking on. Yeah, it truly is. You're a wonderful person. Thank you so
Thank
much
you so much
for
for
being
having
on
me,
the
Stacey.
show.
I so
Again,
appreciate it.
everyone, this is Joree Rose, and she's a licensed marriage and family therapist, the mindfulness educator, author, and speaker. Let's share her website and email. Her email is Joree, Joree @comcast.net. And then, of course, her wonderful website, which you can catch all her podcasts right there. It's Joree, her name, Rose, ROSE.com. So please go there. And she's got a couple books out. A new one's going to be coming out in January of the new year. And so I'm excited to hear about that. Gratefulness, right?
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Yes.
it'll be a wonderful book. So is there any last words you'd like to share with our audience here tonight? You've shared so much about your life and
Thank
your
you.
transition, and very inspiring. Absolutely.
Thank
You're a very
you.
inspiring lady.
I would say the one piece of advice, and this is for anyone who works with me, if you do nothing else, then take a minute and just breathe. If you can just slow yourself down, take a few deep breaths, it'll allow you to calm your brain, calm your body, allowing you to access the tools that you need to get through whatever next moment is bringing. In absence of slowing down and breathing, you're on autopilot. You're not paying attention to yourself, to your needs, to your emotions, to your thoughts, to what's going on inside of you and around you. Taking that moment to breathe is almost enough to get through anything that you are having a difficult time getting through. And ultimately, remember, you have a 100% success rate in getting through everything you never thought you could. May not have been easy, but the fact that you're here and listening and breathing means you've gotten through it all. So, be kinder to yourself, have greater self-compassion. Easier said than done, but that is why it's called a practice.
Well, you are so right. And thank you so much for sharing with us. It's been a joy, a total joy. So I hope you'll come back on again and visit us again.
Absolutely.
We would love to have you.
Thank you. Take care and be well.
Oh, thank you. Well, gosh, we have to wrap up the show here tonight, guys. It went by so fast. Can you believe it? I mean, I can't believe it. But we covered a lot. We covered a lot with regards to the transition. You are in control of your life. And if you need a helping hand, someone like Joree Rose is a perfect candidate that can help you. There's others out there that we've had shared with you here on the Going Solo Network. Just, reach out to them and they'll help you walk through this transition. But the biggest thing I want you to take away is that your life is yours and you can go down that yellow brick road and it can really be amazing. So I hope that you'll join me right back here, same time, same place. I am Cece Schatz, the doyenne of relationships, and the show is Going Solo with Cece. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast. We're the #1 internet singles talk network, and we want to thank you for joining us. Of course, you can find us right on the goingsolomedia.com. If you want to email me, I would love to talk to you. My email is goingsoloNetwork@gmail.com. And then, of course, we're on YouTube. So just find us on YouTube. All our wonderful shows are there. So I hope you stick around. We're going to have more shows here tonight, right here on the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Facebook page. And I'll catch you later on tonight. Bye for now.